Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and in today's video I want to showcase you guys Outlaw Rogue Arena Guide. Now this guide is going to talk to you guys about everything you need to know when it comes to playing Outlaw Rogue within arenas, primarily in 3v3s. I'm going to be talking about your role, ability uses, roll the bones, useful abilities, and how to overall use your big offensive cooldowns. I want to preface this video with this in the beginning, and this is something that turns you off. There's not a lot I can really do, but I do want to give everybody a fair chance, whether you like the spec or not. First of all, this spec is all about roll the bones. If you wanted to play slice and dice, you will not be able to. So if that was a game breaker for you, I think this video might not be for you. Second, if you were trying to use Outlaw Rogue in a variety of comps, let's say you have a friend who's a Windwalker Monk, or a Demon Hunter, or maybe even a Warlock, I'll let you know right now, Outlaw Rogue isn't good in a lot of comps. There are a few specific comps. Primarily the two comps that I know 100% are good is Rogue Mage Druid or Healer, and then Rogue Fury Warrior Healer with a really manga comp. But those are the comps that I know work. There's not a lot of variety for Outlaw. So with that said, let's get to the guide. The first thing I want to talk a bit about is the general theory of the role of the Outlaw Rogue. Your role is to, as any rogue, to lock down targets. You're to provide cross CC, you're to provide cover for crowd control, and you're to help burst. You lock down the targets using stuns. Usually your best stun is between the eyes, and that's usually the stun you'll be lining up for the kill. Use between the eyes at max combo points when your team is ready to deal damage. Then next you provide cross CC, and you do so using blinds and stuns, which are great when you're trying to put the whole enemy team into a lockdown with crowd control. Communicate with the team members to figure out who is getting which CC and then execute it together, because when you have the whole enemy team crowd control, for example, let's say you're facing against a Hunter Warrior Healer, if you have the Warrior Cyclone and the Healer Polymorphed and the Hunter stunned, then there's nothing that stops the enemy team from helping them save their teammate, which is something you will want to watch out for. Cross CC is important. You also want to cover for crowd control. Let's say for example, if your Shaman is trying to hex the healer, but the enemy mage keeps kicking those hexes, you are to cover for the CC by gouging the mage and stopping him from kicking your healer. And you'll be doing a variety of those kind of mini CC to cover for bigger CC in order to create lineups. And as an Outlaw Rogue with the ability of gouge, and as long as you're watching for dimension returns, you are one of those classes and specs that is fairly good at doing that. And finally, you are also there to help burst. While Outlaw Rogue isn't really all about massive damage, you are there to stun lock the target and buff your teammates. So while majority of the damage will come from your teammate being buffed by 15%, you are still there to help out with damage. So that is something you should be trying to do as best as possible. Now I want to talk a little bit about the theory of some of the ability uses, and these are some of the key ability uses in arenas. First of all, we have Tricks of the Trade. You want to use this ability often since it has only a 30-second cooldown. It has a short duration, but it should still be used often. Any form of damage that can come from your team members should be paired with a stun and your Tricks of the Trade on the team. With this, you can actually force some defenses and trinkets before you line up your massive cooldowns. Plunder Armor. You should use this when you're executing your burst and when trying to go for the kill. It's best to use the ability with the massive health reduction to apply on the enemy rather than for the actual damage itself. So when you are using Plunder Armor on the enemy, you're not looking for how much damage can you deal while Plunder is available, although if you can deal any form of damage, that's great. But the main purpose of it is to reduce how much maximum health the target has, which makes them that much easier to kill within burst. Then finally, we have ability of Adrenaline Rush, and Adrenaline Rush is something you can use when bursting or when trying to fish for good buffs. This ability actually has a lot of versatility. You can use this at the start of the game and see if you can wait for a good buff before you line up with your mage, or you can save this until you are bursting with a friendly target. So this way you're able to contribute a little bit more towards the damage you're putting out. Let's talk now about Roll the Bones, and I'm going to give you guys a simple rule for Roll the Bones within arenas. The simple rule is, do not attempt to do much without true bearing buff. It is basically a required buff if you wish to have the most amount of control or utility as an Outlaw Rogue. The buff lets you use Adrenaline Rush a lot more often after spending a lot of cooldown, a lot of combo points into it. But where the buff comes into play is you use it between the eyes being more frequent, your Mark for Death being more frequent of a use, and Grappling Hook becomes more frequent. So this way you're able to chase up the targets, you're able to stun lock targets back to back to back, and you're able to use your Mark for Death in order to facilitate either burst with a run through or a CC with a between the eyes. This gives you a little bit more viability, utility, and flexibility in various PvP situations. When you are not able to get True Bearing as a buff, in most cases it is best just to have your team hold off the burst unless you have double stun available from other sources, because in most cases True Bearing is basically your only good buff. How to use your cooldowns, and I'm talking about your big cooldowns. Basically, you don't want to use any of your cooldowns unless for a jungle rush. That's the only cooldown. You are free to use however you want to. But the best way to look at Outlaw Rogue is you're a support class. Don't think of yourself as much of a DPS class, think of yourself as a true support class. And I think we haven't had those kind of classes in a while in World of Warcraft. But you're somebody who is setting up the stage. You're not really the lead role or the main actor in the situation. What you're trying to do is facilitate your teammates or partners burst whenever they are ready. So whenever they have damage up, that's when you want to use the Adrenaline Rush, that's when you want to use your Plunder Armor, that's when you want to use your Artifact Weapon, only whenever they have burst. You don't really get to direct whenever you have burst, you only get to direct them whether you have Tricks of the Trade, whether you have True Bearing, and whether you have stuns back to back. And I think this is everything I have for you guys. This is something that is difficult to explain, the Outlaw Rogue PvP. It is simple, but it's not easy. It is a very simple spec with a very simple mechanic of roll the bones, line up damage, stun your target, and it's really all about practice. And practice and the actual exactly what to do, which ability to press in the game is something you can't really put in a video. This is something that you guys will have to experience for yourselves, get practice a little bit at it, win some games, lose some games, but eventually you'll learn a lot out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.